Welcome back, and today we're taking a look at some products that are currently on Kickstarter. A modular pouch system from Viperade, along with one of the most unique pry tools I have ever seen. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, I'm not going to spend an extensive amount of time talking about this modular bag system. Viperade is absolutely going to be making these. They're a company that have made a lot of bags already. You can find them on Amazon and they're very, very popular. You want to look at it very simply. This is a way for them to determine how popular something is likely to be, and then they're able to give you a brief discount when you invest early. So right now you can get it at a discounted rate. So if this appeals to you and you think you're going to end up getting one at some point, you might want to get it now versus later, because you're going to save a little bit of money. Now, about this system, I don't feel like this is something groundbreaking or new. What I do think is worth noting is that there are a lot of nylon bags in the tactical look on Amazon, and it's not always obvious from the pictures how good the quality is. My experience with Viperade is that they actually are some of the best value out there. Their construction is incredibly well built. All of their stitching is really well done. All of their connection points. I've been very pleased with their work in general, and this is no exception to the rule. So you have a large main bag with a top loading component, and it's interesting because it's two side zippers. It opens up completely. My recommendation, because the zippers are not attached, is to attach a string so you can pull the whole thing open at the exact same time. And on the inside, you have a bunch of different organizers along the side. You have a mesh pouch on the opposite side, and it's just open in the middle. Pretty straightforward here. You then have the option of adding small bags, which can be attached to the side using these clips, or a slightly larger front bag. The concept, I think, is to take what is already kind of a bag available on Amazon and break it down into components that you can mix and match depending on your needs. So if that is appealing to you, this would be a great way to get access to a bunch of different pouches at a discounted rate. So there is only a few more days available for you to be able to purchase this. I think it's about 4 days. It's already very much fully funded. And they are going to come with a series of clips. They kind of work like tech locks. And I have to say, they're actually really well designed because they are quite secure. They match up directly with the MOLLE on the back of each pouch. All of these pouches have a combination of Velcro as well as zipper setups. If we go to the inside, once again, you have organizing capability there. Nicely constructed, and the same thing is true with the smaller pouches. You get the general gist. I'm going to move on from this. If you want to find this at a discounted rate, I will leave a link down in the description. In addition to what Viperade sent for the Kickstarter, they also sent out 3 pocket knife multi-tools, and I'm going to do a brief overview of these. I may come back to them a bit later, but I don't know if that's going to be necessary, and I think you think you'll realize very quickly why that is. So the first one is 6.5 ounces. The second one is 6.2 ounces. And then the third one, which is the most interesting of the bunch in my opinion, is 4.5. So quite heavy. So this is just a little bit lighter than a Leatherman Skeletal. These are a little bit heavier than something like the Leatherman Bolster at 6 ounces or the Leatherman Bond at 6 ounces. So you could see, for not having pliers, they're quite heavy. The yellow one comes with a set of bits that work with the locking 3-dimensional Phillips. So I do like that part. That was good that they did the locking Phillips. The problem is that this entire section here, you see this plastic backspacer and this metal sleeve, all of which increase the weight, is there primarily to hold this diamond sharpener slash ferro rod whistle. Now, I actually think that this combination of features is actually quite cool. The fact that it can come off and then sharpen your blade is cool, except that this system is a little bit heavy. It does not have a built-in pocket clip for the pocket knife itself. So how are you carrying it? And it's so wide. I mean, frankly, it's wider than a Leatherman Wave, okay? So something that is only about an ounce lighter than the Leatherman Wave, thicker than the Leatherman Wave, and still doesn't have a pair of pliers. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know. It does have scissors, which look decent, but not great, but they are hard to access. It has a very weird, partially serrated flathead thing, and I'm very against the combination of a flathead or prying tool with a sharp edge on the side that doesn't have a lock. And in this case, it does not have a lock. So there's a lot of things going on here, like essentially functions for the sake of functions, and I commend them for trying. I just don't know if I would have gone this route where you just shove everything in and get a really heavy tool. There's just a lot of great options out there at probably a lower price, and this just doesn't capture the mark. I think when I think pocket knives that are cheap and inexpensive, I think of like this rock tool here, which has a one-handed blade that's in 7CR18 MOV, along with a scissor, a full 1/4" bit driver, and a bunch of tools. It's a lot more elegant and it's cheap. This isn't going to be it for me. Similarly, I think that this one is cool, and it reminds me a lot of some of the Roxxon scissors. I like the scissors on this quite a bit. And it is lighter, but I think we're once again missing the mark slightly. This one, compared to the others, I think this is probably the best one. It has a proper pocket clip. It does have a locking 440A blade, and it has this really cool thing that it can do, where let's see if I can do it right. Yeah, it comes apart and you have scissors by itself with a couple of screwdrivers that lock. Oh, I have a hard time getting that out. And then you have a separate knife. Very interesting, very interesting. Now this component, I can't get these out particularly easy, but they do have a liner lock. Both of them, in fact, liner lock. Kind of a little bit more than they should, but very, very cool that they included that. I feel like this is going to be far too fiddly, and in fact, I almost had it wedged between the two tools. Glass breaker on the end. Less is more. Less is certainly more. However, this one is definitely got something of note because of those scissors. I think that this would be a fun one to have, and I like the way they lock together. Yeah, not bad. It depends purely on price. As of right now, I don't know, and if I can find a link to them, I will link them. And then the last one, I was really excited at first when I opened it, because all of these components built in with a bit driver would have been great, except we have the very unusual 5mm bit size. So 5mm bits. I don't know if you know this, but those don't really exist anywhere outside of unusual proprietary, bits that come out of China. That's pretty much the only time I've ever seen them. It has a really unusual serrated blade with a pull cutter and bottle opener. Once again, putting a bottle opener or other function on something that has a cutting edge pushing itself against the lock towards you. That doesn't make me feel particularly comfortable. But I gotta say, it is a pretty cool piece. 420 stainless on this. No pocket clip. Missed opportunity. Why isn't there a pocket clip right here? Caution, big old text on the side. Either way, they're trying new things. I will give them that. I will give them credit for that. And it does have a really cool set of wrenches along the side. You have a small, very, very small hex driver. You have a Phillips flathead combo. This is probably going to be great for your glasses. And then the last one is, does this even, yeah, does it have the, is it the same size? Huh. No, that's a star. So that's not going to work with that. So a couple of different combinations. I think that's a T6 and maybe 2 mil is what I'm thinking here. It doesn't say in the information, but they are magnetic and they sit in just like that. The thought process is interesting, and it is a kind of an interesting tool, but the use of 5mm bits, I think, kills it a little bit. If they had used standard 1/4 inch, I would be much more excited about it, especially if we could get it at a reasonable price. Anyway, I'm going to probably revisit these in the future, but kind of a first look to showcase what Viperade is coming out with when it comes to multi-tools. Now here is something completely different. Currently on Kickstarter, probably around 20 days left, fully funded, and it's called the Sanctum Hardbar. Sanctum being the company, Hardbar being the name. This is not something I've seen before. Now, I have found companies that will utilize the internal parts of a titanium pry tool, but not to this extent, or not for this purpose. What they have done here is taken what is just basically a titanium pry tool, which has a pocket clip and everything else, and then they've stored in it a small knife, which has, of course, a bottle opener. Obligatory, you gotta have a bottle opener on anything EDC these days. Anyway, but the titanium pry itself is a useful tool. You have a really nicely designed edge here, not super thin, not too thick, and thankfully they did not put a V-notch, which would have potentially caused failure. It also has a oxygen wrench for use in that manner. Not that you're likely to use it for that, but it's there. There's an attachment point for a lanyard here, but also at the end of the blade. And I think you're definitely going to need a lanyard in order to grip it properly. The way I see this is, in theory, it's mostly a novelty. But were they to design it more as a sheath for a longer knife that has a proper handle, I think it could actually be quite interesting and be useful in a bunch of different types of uses. Because there's times when you want to use a pry tool and all you have is your blade, and you tend to use it for that purpose, and that's when things break. You're not going to do that if your sheath also happens to be your pry tool. So I do think this is quite interesting. We have Ultim, or PEI, put in there, which is a very hard thermoplastic. And yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments when it comes to this. Obviously, this is a bit of a fancy novelty, but you know, I love gadgets. There's no question I am a huge fan of gadgets, and I have not seen anything like this before. It is already, as I said, fully funded, and there's about 20 days left, so if you want it, feel free to check it out. I'll leave a link down in the description. So that's going to be it. Whether you want the Viperade pouch or the pry bar from Sanctum, these are currently on Kickstarter. 4 days, or 3 or 4 or 5 days left on the Viperade, and about 20 left on the Sanctum. As always, thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll talk again soon.